It's time to grade the bullpen and discuss who we want in the bullpen in 2026.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You graded the standout arms in the bullpen. You also gave grades to our young relievers, and you even suffered through giving grades to the arms that have a lot of questions and if they're going to be around in 2026. Before we talk about the bullpen, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're talking Angels baseball with you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Even in the off-season, we're here every weekday talking about your favorite team, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of news as well, so we want to make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Subscribe there as well so you don't miss anything about our Halos. We've been doing a lot of roster report cards. We're on the final day of the roster report card, and this is really fun because you, our everydayers, all graded the roster. You submitted your grades. We compiled them. We compiled all of the most the trending comments, I guess you could say, Mike. And here we are on the final day of roster report cards. This time it's the bullpen, and we're going to get it started with somebody that definitely was a standout, and hopefully we can bring back. Mike, you're flying blind here. You haven't seen these grades yet, so I'm going to share these with you. Let's start with Kenley Jansen, who received a score of 4.71 out of 5. That was good for an A grade. The comments around Kenley Jansen were some form or fashion of bring him back, still got it, and leadership. I think I agree with all of those sentiments and the A grade that he received. How about you?
I'm so proud of our everydayers. Never doubted you. I knew that you would give him an A because he had a fantastic year. Here's where my concern comes in, John. Bullpen pieces are pieces that are always very volatile. Now, Kenley Jansen has not been volatile. He has been very good in almost every season. There were like 2 years where he really struggled, but in almost every season, he's been very good. My concern is you bring him back and he's not the same guy, but because of his history, there's great confidence that we can bet that he's going to be the same guy. What he brings to this team is a lot of veteran leadership. The problem with the Angels is they bring in these guys that have quote unquote veteran leadership skills, but they never perform on the field. Kenley Jansen was an anomaly for that. And I'm thankful that he was on this team. I would love to see him back in this bullpen as well. And I think in order to get him, they're probably going to have to lock him up for maybe 2 years because he is somebody that has said he wants to pitch for maybe 3 or 4 more years. And he's been very high on playing in Anaheim, really loves it here. His family still lives in Southern California. I would love to see Kenley Jansen at the back of this bullpen for 2 reasons. One, the reason I mentioned the veteran leadership, but 2, there really isn't anybody else that can lock down the back of this bullpen. We'll talk about Ben Joyce later in the show, but he's coming off an injury. So is Robert Stephenson, and he hasn't been somebody we can count on. I think the Angels need somebody like a Kenley Jansen to lock things down in the back of the bullpen, to be able to close games out, but also to be able to be on the mound and tell the team what he wants them to do and tell the catcher what I want to throw, which is normally just the cutter. He is in complete control when he's out there. That's what I think I admired the most about Kenley Jansen, because he felt like even in really pressure-packed situations, he did not break a sweat. He was not concerned. He was ready to go, knew what he wanted to do, had a game plan, had a strategy, and for the most part was very successful this last season.
Yeah, you said he had maybe 1 or 2 bad years, but there was I think it was something about Kenley and what he was able to do for the Angels this year. And I remember seeing a Dodger fan saying, man, he had a bad 2 weeks, and now here we are without Kenley Jansen. We could certainly be using him in the bullpen this season. So they're quick to move on and let him go. Mike, they're I don't want to say trash because he's not trash, but like their trash is our treasure, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that was so good for us this season, I think is really significant. Somebody that you could trust every single time he went out there, more than Carlos Estevez, right? More than Luis Garcia that they had to use a couple of times, more than Ben Joyce, because Ben Joyce hasn't been able to stay on the field. I wouldn't mind seeing Kenley Jansen back as well. Let's talk about somebody who was a workhorse. In fact, that's one of the comments that he received. That's Brock Burke. He got a 3.37 score out of 5. That's good for a B-. Workhorse was the top comment. Reliable, dependable, and consistent were some of the comments that our everydayers had to say about Brock Burke. What are your thoughts on the big lefty, Brock Burke?
We've talked about this on the show before, but Brock Burke is an example of the Angels pitching coaches, specifically Barry Enright, being able to figure out what will make this guy successful and then having him throw that pitch or have that release point or that windup so that he can be successful.
Move 2 inches to the left or to the right on the mound, right?
Yeah. They were able to analyze what he was doing in Texas and why it wasn't working, and they changed it when he came to Anaheim, and he's been a great piece for this bullpen, a guy that they can count on. Everydayers were right. Workhorse, reliable, dependable, consistent is the key, and that was something that Perry Manassian said this team lacked in 2025, and Brock Burke was the anomaly there. He was the guy that you could count on to come out of the bullpen and be able to get the outs that he needed. Now, how they use him next year will be interesting based off of who the manager is, because there's a lot of conversation about you just use him for 1 inning and that's it. But Brock Burke can be a guy that can go multiple innings, and I think he would be a really great guy, which is why I would love to get to the playoffs, because I would love to see Brock Burke in the playoffs. I think he could be the guy that you can rely on maybe for 1-2 innings and maybe possibly 3 innings, depending on how long you want to stretch him out, because he's that good and he's that consistent and he's been that reliable for the Halos.
It's great to have a hard-throwing lefty, too. He's got a really high velo on his fastball, and so that's certainly something that he brings to the table. Great to have him around next season. Here's a guy who may or may not be around next season, but I'd love to have him back. You guys know I was excited to receive Andrew Chafin in that trade. 3.31 score out of 5, a B-. Somebody that you and I have wanted for a long time on this team, but they finally got him about 3 years later than when we actually needed him. But he got a B-. People said a useful veteran. Bring him back. And then, of course, Mike, they said mustache. So there you go. Andrew Chafin.
I really liked him. He performed well for us. It was nice to have somebody like an Andrew Chafin in the bullpen and perform well. They made a move for him, got him, and he still continued to have a great season. I don't know if the Angels will bring him back. The big question mark for the offseason is who will be in this bullpen. I think it'd be a great move to bring him back, having a strong lefty in Brock Burke, but also a strong lefty in Andrew Chafin. Again, volatility is always the question about bullpen pieces. Kenley Jansen may not fit that category as much as maybe an Andrew Chafin might, but Andrew Chafin is somebody that has had a pretty consistent career. And John, he could close if Kenley Jansen is unavailable. Andrew Chafin has had a history of closing out games. I would be confident in having these two veterans in the back of the bullpen while our younger guys learn how to close and develop, with these two guys teaching them how to be better in the back end of the bullpen.
Now, this is somebody who will not be in the bullpen, according to Perry Manassian, but he did earn his first career save this year. And somebody that everybody was really proud of, and that's Reed Detmers, Mike. He got a score of 4.12 out of 5. That's good for a B+. Some of the comments about Reed Detmers were about a great turnaround for him, most improved, and then, of course, starter in 2026. But there were a lot of comments on that note about keep him in the pen, maybe he teach him to close. I'm partial to putting him back in the rotation because I think that's who Reed Detmers is meant to be. I think he's going to be a completely different person in the starting rotation, considering that he needed this trip to the bullpen to get through those mental issues and those mental errors and those mental mistakes that were holding him back. And we talk about a lot with like, hey, dude, just trust your stuff. And not just about Reed Detmers, but we talked about it with the starters. We'll talk about it with some of these bullpen guys. Detmers is the epitome of that. Like, bro, you're good. Trust your stuff. Go out there and attack. And I think that's why he's earned his way back to a starter spot in 2026. Your boy, Reed Detmers. What do you think about this B+ grade?
Yeah, I think it's great. Been a fan of Reed Detmers since he got called up and will continue to be a fan. The biggest key for him, John, is him focusing on throwing his best stuff. And the tension that he's going to have to ride in 2026 is, was he throwing his best stuff and his mentality was stronger because he didn't have multiple innings to throw. He could just unload in one inning, and that's why he was so good. How does he take that and continue with that mindset as a starter, but not completely wear himself out? That's going to be the tension that he's going to need to ride as a starter for the Angels. I think he can do it, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's going to be successful, and it's going to be a reason why he may not have big innings where he's thrown 25, 26 pitches, where he's walked a bunch of guys. If he focuses on, I'm going to throw as hard as I can in this inning, I'm going to throw the best curveball I got, I think that that's what made him win in the bullpen this last year, and I think that that's what will make him win as a starter next year.
You mentioned the tension around that, and I think about Shohei Ohtani, right? One of the things that was so impressive when he would throw was that he would throw an easy 98, right? And that's what he would do for his fastball. And then when he needed to, he'd reach back and throw 101, 102, and he didn't use it all the time. It wasn't full effort, max effort every time. I think Detmers can be like that, where, yeah, maybe he's sitting 96 on the fastball, but then all of a sudden he's going to throw 98, 99 at you, and that's going to make a huge difference and fool the guys up there. I think that if he can be strategic and be smart on the mound and also have that attack mode, I think that's going to be really good for Reid Detmers in the starting rotation next year. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we saw a lot of young arms come out of the bullpen, some guys that were pegged to be starters and now have settled into a role out of the pen. Who are we talking about? Well, we're going to get into that and your grades for the young arms in just a minute.
We're right in the middle of the NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer that you can't miss. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Just pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives you many opportunities to play. You can build parlays, try player props. You can even bet on live games. There's some money lines that you can follow, and options pop up as the game unfolds. So pay attention, whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So stop waiting. Get started at FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app today and get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can hit us up wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, you can hit us up on your smart TV if you want to watch us somewhere. You can also get at us on YouTube and watch us there. And most importantly, get in the comments section on YouTube, because that's the best place to interact with us, as well as social media, at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're all over the place, Mike, when it comes to social media, and we want to hear your thoughts and your responses to some of these grades for the bullpen. Now, let's talk about some of the young relievers, Mike, that came out of the pen this season. And I think the one that we should lead off with here is Ryan Zeferjahn. Mike, remember, he came over at the trade deadline last year. He pitched really well out of the pen to finish out 2024, and we were all thinking, hey, he's going to be great out of the bullpen in 2025. And the results were a bit mixed. He got a 2.55 score out of 5. That's good for a C grade. The comments that are everyday are submitted, a lot of them had to say disappointing. People were obviously listening to me and saying, throw the four seam. And then also another home run. What was the Halo boys, the Angels in the outfield, when we got to sit with them at the game, they're calling him Zephyr
Suarez.
Zephyr Suarez, because of the home runs that he gave up.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was great.
Yeah, Ryan Zeferjahn, Mike, not the kind of season that you would have hoped out of him. And again, I'm a big proponent of throw the dang four seam. Stop throwing sweeper, slider, sweeper, slider. Like, you got hard stuff, throw it. Good grief.
Yeah, and that's why he gave up a lot of home runs, because once he stopped throwing the slow stuff, started throwing the hard stuff, they knew it was coming.
Yeah, and they had the cutter in there and all that. Yeah.
His strategy was terrible. He didn't know what he was going to throw. Whoever was calling the pitches didn't know what he had in his arsenal. And why are we starting with a sweeper when you should start with a four seam? He was all over the place. And so a C grade is very fair to Ryan Zeferjahn. And he's somebody that could be really, really good. And we saw him take a step back this year. And so let's get it together, bud, because I think he could be a 7-8 inning guy. And really lock down this bullpen, be a big help. But he's got to figure out what he wants to throw, and then has to be confident in the things that he's going to throw, because if he doesn't, what he did this last year is what his career will look like. Stop throwing the weak stuff, throw the hard stuff, and then offset it with your weak stuff. I think you're going to get a lot of swings and misses. He's got like Reed Detmers type of stuff. So utilize that. Throw it past him. Throw it high in the zone. Get above the strike zone. That's where he wasn't throwing. He was trying to throw low and in, and that's why he was getting hit a lot. You throw that four seam high, maybe even out of that strike zone, you're going to get guys to swing at that once they start to buy into the fact that you have this sweeper and you have some off-speed stuff. Let me coach him. I'll figure it out for him, because he was just so frustrating for Angel fans this year.
Look at Blake Treinen versus Bryce Turang the other night. Turang, is working the at-bat, and he's trying to tie up the game in the ninth inning. Mike, he knew the fastball was coming. He knew that Treinen was going to throw that fastball, but Treinen threw it at the nose, right? And Turang swung through it because he was like, all right, I'm ready for this fastball, so I'm getting ready to swing. But he threw it way above the strike zone, swung right through it, and that's how Treinen was able to get out of the game. That's something that I think, even if they expect the fastball, put it where they can't hit it, because if they're sitting fastball and they try to swing at it, they're not going to be able to hit it at the letters, right? And if they lay off on it, good on them. Yeah. But there's the definite possibility that they are going to swing right through it. Mike, there was a Fangraphs article that came out at the beginning of the season, and it said, why Ryan Zeferjahn has the most unhittable stuff, and he's a pitcher you haven't even heard of. And so there was high praise for Ryan Zeferjahn. They talked about him on Fangraphs. They talked about it on MLB Network. And so for him to have the kind of season that he had, I think that he was just utilized in the complete wrong way. Let's talk about somebody who's being utilized in a different way than what we had expected, Mike, and that's Chase Silseth. He got a 2.60 score out of 5, a C grade. The comments around Chase Silseth were fiery, better in the bullpen, and also stay healthy. What are your thoughts on these grades and these comments from Chase Silseth?
Let me add a fourth comment. Throw strikes. That's his biggest issue. Throw strikes. The guy wants to be at the major league level, then throw strikes. I remember we had an episode where he came up and he threw 4 consecutive balls, and then the next guy, he walked, and he's frustrated with himself. And then he's interviewed after, and he's frustrated with how he performed, and he wants to stay at the major league level, and he wants to be good. Throw strikes. Stop trying to dance around the issue. And that was the Angels' biggest issue on the pitching side. You get 2 strikes, and then suddenly they didn't know where the strike zone was. Chase Silseth is the epitome of that. Bullpen piece is the perfect piece for him because he wears out far too quickly, and he's somebody that maybe can go 1 or 2 innings. If he gets his head right, and if he gets his strategy right, I think he could be a really good piece for this pen and be at the major league level all season long. I think he'd be a consistent guy the Angels could rely on, could be the bridge from the starter to the back end of the bullpen. But the key is throw strikes, dude. That's how you're going to be effective. That's how you're going to stay at the major league level.
Yeah, what happened to all the conversation we had when, Barry Enright came in 2024 and the emphasis was everybody throw strikes. Stop dancing around the strike zone. That's really what it's come down to. So I don't know if that's and obviously Silseth wasn't with the team the whole season. He was down in the minor leagues, coming back from injury and all of that. That's another part of this, Mike, is staying healthy. He's got to stay healthy. And, I think the bullpen, while I'm disappointed he won't be a starter for the foreseeable future, I think we're in a better position than we were when he first came up and was a starter, where it was like, oh, cool, we got a new starter. I think that there will be better arms in terms of starting pitching ahead of Silseth. Now, let's talk about somebody who was kind of a pleasant surprise, but also was kind of hit and miss, Mike, and that's Jose Fermin with a 2.46 score. He got a C- grade. The comments, I like this one, electric but erratic, promising future, and then good stuff, as in, good pitching stuff. I think I agree with all of that, including the grade of a C- for Jose Fermin.
That first comment is perfect. Electric, but erratic.
Yeah.
He's another guy. Just throw strikes. And by the way, Jose, you got really good stuff.
Right.
So don't overthrow it. It's like what Jose Soriano did. Maybe it's just the first name. It's all the Jose's. You have really great stuff. Don't overthrow it. You don't need to overthink it, and you don't need to overthrow it. It's really good. You don't need to make it like way good. It's they're gonna swing over it. They're gonna miss it. It's really good. So just be confident in your stuff. Be confident in who you are. Now, young guy learning about that. I get that. I think this was a good growth year for Jose Fermin.
It's the right year to use him too. That's for sure.
Heck yeah. And I think he is going to should be a key cog in the bullpen wheel in 2026.
Yeah, I agree. And with his stuff, I was going to say, maybe they can just hire us to come in and like just be encouraging to these guys. Hey,
I'm just going to give a speech. Let me give a speech.
You got great stuff, right? Yeah, exactly. All right. Mike, another guy who was planning on being a starter and it just hasn't worked out because of health. He ended up coming out of the bullpen. It's Sam Bachman, Mike, a 2.35 score. He got a C- grade. The comments said that he had a uneven season, needs some more work. And then this was Perry's number 1 pick in 2021. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Sam is probably another guy like Chase Silseth that just fits the bullpen mentality. Yeah. He just can't stay healthy. And when he started, it just wore on his body. But he does have that bullpen ability. A couple years ago, he was brought up to be in the bullpen. I remember he had a couple of big key outs in some big key games when the Angels were still in it. I think he's somebody they could rely upon again. Bullpen arms are so volatile, John. You never know what you're going to get with these bullpen arms. Do you want to spend a lot of money for them, or do you want to have some of your young guys fill those roles? I think the Angels obviously aren't going to spend much money. If they're going to spend money, it's probably not going to be on bullpen pieces. So I think you have to utilize these guys and get them ready for the role that you want them to play. So tell Bachman what you want him to do, and then let him do that and practice and prepare for that all off season and including spring training. Stop dancing him around, figuring this out, figuring that out. If you're going to make those choices, I think they got to tell him way before he starts to put in the work, because he is somebody that I think could really be a good bullpen piece. So let's tell him that's what we want, and then let's let him focus on that.
And throw strikes, right?
And throw strikes.
Right. Finally, Mike, last guy. For the young reliever, somebody we saw at the beginning of the season and then was eventually sent down, I think with good reason. That's Ryan Johnson, Mike. He got a 2.78 out of 5. That's good for a C grade. The comments around Ryan Johnson were too soon, mismanaged, and future starter. What do you think about those comments, Mike?
Yeah, very, very soon to have him up. But the reason why they brought him up, John, the mental side of things. He's exactly what you want in a pitcher. He's exactly what you want on your staff. He's somebody that doesn't care. Remember when they took him out of a game and then he's marching back and forth in the bullpen, ready to go back in. And he was so much so going to go back into the game in one of those games where he came back out and they had to put him on the mound again because he met the bullpen piece out there. And so that's mismanagement on Ray Montgomery's side. Like, they're not even paying attention. But I like Ryan Johnson a lot. I think as a starter, there's some questions. Remember the scout that we talked about who evaluated the Angels' young pitching staff? He doesn't see Ryan Johnson as a full-time starter, sees him more as a bullpen piece. I think it might be because of how hyped he gets. It might be because of his windup. I would love to see maybe some more time as a starter, because down in single A, he looked pretty good. I think they're going to have him in double A to start the year, and they need to allow him to work his way through. Don't rush him back up again. But good news is if he doesn't really have much success as a starter and maybe is more of a reliever, he's got the mentality for it, John. I don't think he's going to be somebody that's going to lack confidence and courage on the mound. I think he's just going to be somebody that needs to figure out what he can throw and how to throw it at his best.
Yeah, to me, it's all about that wind up, and I'm pretty sure that's probably why the scout said, that doesn't seem very repeatable for a starting pitcher. But, we've seen lots of pitchers have interesting windups and herky-jerky movements and all of that. And he had success as a starter down in the minors. So give him time, let him cook, let him marinate, let him do all those things before he gets called back up again.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. It's the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off for you and for me. We make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right means that you get to cash in. And with football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on all of the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, and it takes about 60 seconds, and that's it. So download the PrizePick app today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
Mike, we're going to get to the remaining bullpen pieces, and there's a lot of question marks around these guys. So I've labeled them as the question mark arms. And let's begin with the biggest question mark of all. That's Robert Stephenson, Mike, who has barely played for the Angels.
Yeah.
If we're going to be honest, he got a 2.36 score. That's good for a C grade. Comments were injury prone, injured all the time, waste of money, but he's good when he's healthy. It's just that he hasn't been healthy out there, right?
Yeah, this is a prove-it year for him. He's got 2 more years because the option kicked in. So he'll be expensive this year and not expensive at all next year. And these could be 2 really good years for him if he stays healthy and figures it out. So hopeful that Ryan Stephenson can be healthy and can figure it out. When he's healthy, every day is right. He's been very good for this bullpen.
Yeah. Lots of Ryans, but he's a Robert. He's
Robert. I said Ryan.
He's a Bob. Just call him Bob. That'll be easy. Bob Steve. There you go. Mike, how about another guy who was, kind of a workhorse last year, and then they brought him back, and he did his thing, and that's Carson Fulmer. You got a 2.43 score. That's good for a C-. Comments, and I love the way this commenter put it. Hard to complain.
Yeah.
Reliable. And then this made me laugh too. A 0 WAR, meaning perfect. He didn't help anything and he didn't hinder anything. And that's kind of what Carson Fulmer's role has been on this team, hasn't it?
Yeah, I love Ryan Fulmer. I'm just kidding. I love Carson Fulmer. I had the faux pas earlier this week too, and I said Raffy Palmeiro, and I meant Orlando Palmeiro. So
right. It's my bad. I didn't even stop you. So
my mouth
is
working faster than my brain. Carson, I've appreciated Carson because hard to complain about this guy. He comes in, does his job, does what you need, fills in when you need, can start when you need. I was surprised they didn't have him start some final games at the end of 2025 just to get them to the end, but they did give young guys an opportunity, so I can't complain there. He is somebody that it'd be nice to have in the bullpen as a long reliever, somebody that can eat up some innings. This is the type of guy that I love, who eats up innings and does it pretty effectively. Doesn't just come in and blow up like a Jaime Barria. He comes in and actually gets outs, and you can rely upon him for maybe 3, maybe 4 innings.
Why'd you have to say Jaime Barria? Now there goes my whole day.
That's the name that I remember, right?
Yeah.
And don't mess up.
Exactly. Mike, let's talk about somebody who, in my opinion, worked his butt off this season, and that's Connor Brogdon. Our everydayers gave him a 2.39 score, good for a C-. The comments there were 50-50, overworked, and then valuable innings, as in, he provided them with a lot of innings. He provided them with innings where he kept them in the game a lot of the time. And so, in my opinion, Connor Brogdon, even though he got a C- grade, man, he was out there all the time. And the truth is, our everydayer said overworked. I agree with that, man. Yeah. There was a lot of turning to Connor Brogdon this season. And then at one point, he was DFA'd to make room, and then he eventually came and re-signed with the Angels, came back up toward the end of the season, wasn't as effective as he had been earlier in the season.
Sure.
But I think that goes to the overworked nature of how often he was out there. What do you think about Connor Brogdon?
Yeah, they didn't know what they had when they had him. That's really what it boils down to for the Angels. Can I add another word instead of just overworked? I think he was underappreciated, undervalued. And let me add one more word. I think he probably lacked confidence that they believed in him, because when they brought him back, he wasn't as good. He's probably exhausted, but he probably wondered, like, why am I back here? Why'd you bring me back? Right? Because I don't think they knew what they had with Connor Brogdon. Again, not an old veteran, but a veteran that they could rely upon, and they would throw him out there in really odd situations, or they would leave him out there. Remember, he had a game where he was fantastic, game on the line, got out of the inning, and then it was like, you're rolling him back out there again? The guy's exhausted. What are you doing? But I get that they probably didn't have anybody else that they could go to in that moment. And so they went to Connor Brogdon again, but that's a moment where it's just mismanagement, because you could tell he was exhausted. You could tell he was worn out. He threw everything he could in the previous inning, and then that's all he had.
That's a depth piece that you got in the way that the Angels got him. That worked out very well for them. We'll see in terms of what his future holds and whether the Angels, keep him around and that sort of thing. Somebody that was here for a hot minute, Hector Neris, Mike, former great closer, bullpen piece. on the back nine of his career. He got a 2.02 for his time with the Angels. That's a D+ grade. It was a failed gamble past his prime. And then this comment comes up a lot for some of our grades, but this was like overwhelmingly the main comment, and it was meh for Hector Neris, right?
Yeah, you didn't know what you were going to get with Hector Neris, and he proved that and wasn't who he was. Bargain shopping is what the Angels did with him, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, and they didn't plan to need as much or have as much depth as they would need out of the bullpen as well. All right, next up, Luis Garcia, 3.05, good for a C+ grade. Good pickup, better this time. And somebody said, third time's the charm. And I think I agree with that. I think out of all the times we've had Luis Garcia, I think he worked the hardest for us in 2024, but the best he's looked was definitely after he was acquired at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and that was really nice to see. And it goes to the next person we're going to talk about in Hunter Strickland. Like, Hunter struggled when he wasn't on the Angels, but when he was on the Angels, he did well. Garcia was the same thing. When he wasn't on the Angels, wasn't really reliable, but then on the Angels, very reliable. So it was a good trade for a team that probably shouldn't have been trading for bullpen pieces and probably should have traded away their pieces, right?
Right. No kidding. Speaking of Hunter Strickland, somebody the Angels didn't bring back right at the beginning of the season, and that's something I thought they should have done. He got a 2.88 score, a C+ grade. The comments around Strickland were sadly got injured, a good veteran, and the pen was better with him in it. I agree with that sentiment. I wish that they had signed him sooner. He ended up with the Rangers for a little bit. They let him go, and the Angels eventually got him. You should have just had him from the beginning. Considering what he gave you in 2024, no reason not to bring him back other than volatility, but I still think as a depth piece, it would have paid off. Finally, Mike, let's talk about him. A big question mark for 2026, Ben Joyce. And in the time that he was able to pitch, our everydayers gave him a 2.67 score, a C grade. They said that he started great. People are begging for him to stay healthy and then stop chasing velocity. I think that that's a key to his health. Mike, what are your thoughts on the score, Ben Joyce, and those comments?
The off speed was what made it work for him when he was pitching this last season. And you proved it when you talked about Shohei Ohtani. Don't have to chase velo unless it's necessary.
Right.
And he's a guy that comes in there with a threat of a 101 fastball, but then he throws a 74 mile an hour curve. Watch out, right? And then that's going to throw people off base. He's the guy that needs to play his hard stuff and then have his soft stuff follow. Threaten them with this huge fastball and then throw in a slider or throw in a change. That's going to throw teams off. And you don't need to throw 101. 98, that's sufficient, right? That seems easy for Ben Joyce, and I think that's going to help him stay healthy when he comes back.
Yeah, essentially use the 104 or whatever you can get up to. Use it as your secret weapon because you don't need to bust that out every time. We need you healthy. We need you out there, and we need you in this bullpen for next season.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section because we'd love to hear from you and your responses to today's grades. Thank you for participating, by the way. The grades were a lot of fun. Felt like everybody pretty much nailed it this season. Not a lot that I disagreed with and pretty much agreed with everything that our everydayers had to say. Mike, when we come back tomorrow, what do we have on deck?
Well, we're going to give updates, Angel updates, as to all of the moving and shaking that's happening on the field and off the field and around the organization. So make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure that you tune in because we've got some updates on all the things tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. Looking forward to that and hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here for more Locked On Angels.
I love Ryan Joyce, and I love Ryan Fulmer, and I love
Ryan Strickland.
I love Ryan, everybody.